All right, guys, it's great. We're back. David from the Vinyl Score and Mark from Popcorn Vinyl. We're here a year after. We've all been sort of waiting for the end of 2021 because we had so much fun last year doing our best records of 2020. I'm so excited to have you guys back on my Zoom screen and to talk records because I mostly we can't talk about records that much with other people. So this is like a year of conversation that has been stocking up and now we get to enjoy that. I guess I'll start by asking you, how has this year been for you guys, like record wise? Like, has it been insane, expensive, low season? Like,
Mine has been sort of medium. It didn't go overboard, and I think that's just a kind of product of this year. Basically, everybody's delayed. Pre-orders are delayed. I think there's a lot of stuff that was supposed to come out that didn't. That probably saved my wallet a little bit. But
yeah, if we wrote a book about vinyl, 2021 would be like the pre-order years, like hopefully it's just 1 year, not like a decade, but yeah, which is understandable, like it is what it is. I feel like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm still in that like I'm lucky to have it vinyl mentality where it's just like I'm lucky this exists and I'm able to buy it, so it's fine if I have to wait a couple of months.
And I wonder if some new things would have, had this year not gone the way it did, and there were new releases from films this year, would we maybe not get some of the stuff that was released?
Pretty good.
Because there's some older stuff that was released that was awesome this year. So it was an interesting year.
Yeah, for me, I don't mind the wait a little bit for the pre-orders. Like, it doesn't bum me out too much. I think overall for me, it's been more than medium. I also have gone on a couple of trips where I've bought a lot of used stuff. It hasn't been just like $30 to $50 pre-orders or worse. I spent a couple $100s on records on a road trip from here down to California and back. And I bought a ton of records, but lots of them were $5 to $15. And I took risks on, soundtracks I'd never heard before. So that was really fun to do this year, and a little bit different maybe than some other years. But I do like to go hit the stores when I can. I still at a pretty good pace on the pre-orders, and lots of stuff hasn't come out this year. And I was hoping that the delay actually might help it. And one of them's Dune. I was hoping that would be actually ready by the time the movie came out, since the movie was delayed a whole nother year. And I wondered if that happened with Bond. Mark, thinking about last year when Bond wasn't out, but the movie delayed, and then it seems like that soundtrack came out on vinyl just about the time the movie did.
I think it was just after. I think it was a couple of weeks, and it got bumped a number of times. I kept getting emails, and then I just kind of heard nothing. I wasn't sure exactly when that was coming here. Actually, I have two copies because I ordered one, I think a year and a half ago, that I thought was coming and then didn't. So I actually went to a store, picked one up, and then sure enough, the other one arrived. So the owner of two.
You gotta be sure.
So David, just understand, only like 1,000 records this year for you. Like medium is that? By the way, so people don't know, but we did another segment that it'll be on our YouTube channels. It's like a Secret Santa, and for that segment, we shared like our discogs of each other. And Mark and I were pretty much level fill, and David was just like, we saw that number, we're like, oh my god, it was like.
I'm embarrassed now because it makes me feel like more of a maniac than I think I am. Because some days I talk
You got to own it.
One of the things that I really like about following on your channel and your vinyl habits, and you were alluding to this, is I'm actually on the like pre-order buying new from 30 to 50 and unfortunately even more. And I think based on like how my habits this year have been going, like I feel like I'm starting to embrace that. And especially again, alluding to that segment we're going to do about the Secret Santa and the experience I had with the records that you send me. So I feel like now going into 22, that's kind of like the attitude I want to embrace, which is let me dig the crates. Let me see if I can find stuff and discover new music this way. I think I that's where I'm sort of heading. So it's been an interesting year. I feel like with my vinyl collecting, it's like phases. I'm into something this time and then I switch. So
I think that's where you and I, Paolo, might be a little bit different than David. I find, David, you take a lot of risks and you will take a gamble on stuff you don't really know, whereas I'm super safe. I'll be in the store. I'll put it up, pull up on Spotify, even if I'm not sure. I'm like, do I actually like this? I'm trying to limit the amount. I don't want to have fill this entire room. I do want to be kind of careful, but at the same time, I miss out on some gems that way because I don't take those risks.
You're right. I love a surprise. I'm more apt to take a surprise on older stuff if it's a good deal, and I'll just try it. And that used to be one of my favorite ways to find a new band of any kind, because I have an older brother who would recommend music to me. I was like 14, 15, and I would listen to it and I'd be like, why does he like this? I don't quite get it, and then I would kind of keep trying it, keep listening to it, and then I would kind of go, oh, okay, figure out what the artist is doing a little bit more. That's kind of what I try to do, with some of these other stuff is give it a shot, see what it's like. But yeah, there's lots of things that I could also prune out too. Like once I've given it a shot, if it was good, it was great. And because the good surprises are really good, right? The other ones are kind of forgettable and you can move on a little bit if you want to. But I'm definitely at the edges of space. Like I can't keep doing this without whittling at the same time.
Paolo, you talked about an issue that comes up in a lot of different vinyl groups, and the price issue. And I feel like that affects kind of some of our stuff more so than others, because a lot of people, they're into, let's call it mainstream music. Their artists, they're going to be more standard releases, even if they are special variants or special editions kind of thing. I find our stuff is much more limited quantity. There are more sort of interesting kind of releases, and then that ups the price tag a lot. And I feel like that affects kind of this genre more than others.
Another factor is this year I sort of broke that rule and I started buying popular music on vinyl, and it's a whole different other experience. I was just at a store and they had the Doors LA Woman 50th anniversary, and that was like, again, a really nice packaging, remastering. It comes with a vinyl and 3 CD, and that was like $80. And I was like in that same store looking at the Matrix soundtrack, just like, wow, like 2LP 50, just like it's such a different beast, this like soundtrack specialty. And I'm not necessarily that bothered by it, because if it means being more choosy, I will. I've seen behind the scenes and I know how hard it is to make those things. So I'm not going to be like, well, I just want this, but I also want it cheaper. It's like, I get it. It's just, then you sort of have to adjust. Do I buy less, but pricier, and just hope for that? So it's just interesting. But again, I'm still with that approach, like lucky to have it. It's great that it exists. So thank you for all the efforts, and I'll buy it if I want it. And if not, and I don't. With that in mind, I'm curious to see what you guys have on your list. I'm going to start. My number 3 is The Crow from Bares Sarabande. I picked this album because it was such a cool example of just great execution. Makes me interested in something that I might not necessarily be paying attention. I had listened to the score, but I saw the release from Bares and I just immediately like, wow, I just like stopped me on my track. What is that? It looks really cool. I want to have that. And then that starts like a process, like, okay, if I like it, like, let me start listening to the album. Then you get reacquainted with the score. It's like, man, this score is like really clicking. Like, this is good. Now I really want that. And, it's like, that's why, like, I want to celebrate, because it was like the packaging, the execution. And that's like one thing that the format vinyl can do that. You just see it as like super exciting and makes you pay attention to something you might not be paying attention. I just thought Varese did a really great job with that record. It sounded great. It feels good. That's you guys know what I mean when you just open a record and just instantly you kind of like, this is quality. Sometimes you open something and you're like, let me not breathe on it, let me just put it quickly, because it's like this thing can fall apart. That was not the case with this. So
what I like about that one is it seems like Rez started doing this in the last year. Is they are doing more interesting, more elaborate releases. Previously their stuff would be really simple. It would be just the standard kind of key art photo, not even a gatefold or anything, just kind of a simple jacket. But now they're starting to do some more elaborate stuff, and that had a lot of kind of little details that were really cool.
Mark, what do you got?
Probably number 3. Hey, it's Red Sarabande. This is the Empire Strikes Back Symphonic Suites. So this is actually a Canadian exclusive. So you guys can't get this over there.
What?
That's right. Finally, we have something of our own. So this is on Cloud City Orange vinyl. It's for a record store. It's like a chain here in Canada called Sunrise Records. Similar to what happened, I forget what it was, a Newberry Comics. I think they had an exclusive one as well. And that one, I know a lot of people kind of were surprised by the look of that compared to, again, what they kind of thought originally. Most people agreed that it kind of looked better than what they thought. It kind of had more of a gold look to it. I always like more, or a different version of kind of what I'm used to hearing. So I obviously have the original soundtrack to The Empire Strikes Back, but this is just like a little tweak. It's just kind of a new, different experience. And I feel like I am going to like a symphonic concert when I'm listening to this. It's just enough of a difference, keeps the spirit of the original, and it's just a good listen. I could put it on anytime, and I feel like I'm watching a concert by John Williams.
So I'll say I love that release. I think I'll also touch on another Perez Sarabande one that would probably be on my list if it had not gotten bumped, and they're doing a deluxe Blue Velvet release, which is another Twin Peaks, David Lynch connection, all my little pot of soup there. But my number 3 is from a record label called Terror Vision. They're a little bit smaller. I think they're getting into like boutique Blu-rays and like retro VHS reissues too. So this is of a movie starring Stephen Dorff, and he's just like a kid, and it's called The Gate. And he and his buddy find a hole in the ground in their backyard, and it's a gateway to hell. And what's really cool about the record release is that in the movie, his next door neighbor is really into metal, and he's got this record by this band called Sacrifice, and he says that if you play it backwards, it'll be a spell. So they do it, and it makes the gate bigger. What's really cool is that the record comes looking like the metal record. Okay, I'm gonna open it really quick. So it has like this slip cover, and then you take the slip cover off, and then it reveals the true artwork.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
And it has a pop-up.
Oh.
And it has a pop-up of like the monster from the end of the movie. And it feels kind of like a Poltergeist kind of movie, but if just the kids were trying to figure out what was wrong. It's a little bit kiddie. The soundtrack is very synth 80s horror. The movie itself is really fun. It has some really cool special effects for the time. There's all these little like demons that kind of come out of the hole, and they're running around the house and stuff. I highly recommend this. This is a good Saturday night watch in general. This is just a really cool release from Terror Vision. And they have like a subscription service you can do too. They're a cool label.
You had me at the band is named Sacrifice. Amazing name for a band.
Yeah, I love it because it has, it kind of hits on all those old rumors from the 80s that like metal bands were putting secret messages in, and they just really went with it. So it was really cool. I didn't know it was going to have that wraparound on it when I bought it. So when it came, I was like, what? And then I was like, oh my gosh. So anyway, really fun tie-in. And the record also sounds really great.
So next on my list of best stuff, I'm going to go with a release from Mondo, and I'm going to go from Up, Michael Giacchino, and artwork by Nicole Gustafson. The reason I wanted to pick this one is because we all have these records that it's on our minds every time. I just hope it meets the expectations. And that was one I saw, and I was like, that's exactly how I wanted it to look. That's exactly how I wanted it. And I love that they bring back Nicole Gustafson for the artwork. I got to say, the color variant looks really cool. I'm a sucker for that sometimes. And I'm just glad I got it. And it sounds great. Just everything was executed as I hoped for. And the fanboy in me is just really well pleased. So, and that's a score that I just absolutely love, start to finish. It's one of my favorite Pixar scores. So yeah, Mark, what do you got?
Probably not a surprise, but Wonder Woman. And actually you could see with the light, the kind of cool design they had with it. So this one here, the movie came out, I think in December, right around Christmas last year. And as soon as it came out, like I went bonkers for the soundtrack. You guys know I love Hans Zimmer. And this was just like kind of like, it was
really good.
It was a return to form for me to kind of the type of stuff he hasn't done for a couple of years. And it was such a refreshing kind of score. I love the music, and I was just so eagerly anticipating any kind of release. In terms of the artwork, I don't love it. It's not my favorite. It's not the style I would have went with. It was well executed, the whole thing. It's very nicely done. I have a review in the works for it. I've got actually a whole bunch of these still going to be talking about, but it's just this one's for the music. I just love this soundtrack so much, and love to just toss it on anytime, just because it just gets me all all jazzed up anytime.
He's had a year.
Big year.
Because I just saw Bond like a month ago or 2 weeks ago, and I really liked that. I don't love listening to Dune separated, but in watching the movie, I was like, this is cool. I'm enjoying myself. And then there was a couple of moments that were just like rock concert loud, and I was like, I'm on board. This is a fun experience. And then Wonder Woman was like echoes of Williams and just really exuberant. Like my favorite part from that movie by far is he had any more releases this year? Because those three are just very interesting, and it's just been neat to get so much contrasted work from him this year.
I'm the same way as you. Like, I really enjoy the score when I'm watching it with the film. When I'm listening, I actually gravitate towards either the sketchbook or the art of the one for the book. The Art of Dune was also really cool. I'm curious, what was the decision process with Mondo, because they're the ones who released something, and it wasn't the score for the film, it was the sketchbook. So I'm just curious, what was, was that from them, from Mondo? Was that from the composer or something? Like they wanted, I don't know. I'm just curious, like why the sketchbook and not the score? It's something I don't recall ever seeing.
But also consider that the fact that they're releasing these sketchbooks at all, this is something that even 3 years ago just wasn't happening. But now you're seeing all this material that never would have seen the light of day. You kind of see where certain themes and motifs, how they kind of built that up, and how that changed over the course of making the film, or I guess the scoring process. But for Wonder Woman, they released a sketchbook. For Dune, there was
Man of Steel. I remember that's the first time I remember, I think, seeing that sort of things. It might be earlier, but I remember enjoying that also.
It's awesome to hear just that different kind of version. Kind of takes me back to my comments about Empire Strikes Back. It's kind of that thing, but a little bit of a different version, and it's just more of the good stuff that you wanted to hear.
My number 2 is a Mondo release that was pre-ordered at the end of 2020 that landed just in the beginning part of the year. And that's the soundtrack to Thieves. I've done a big review on this, and if you follow my channel, you guys know I've talked about it. This is a cool release. It's got a neat redesign. I think one of their better redesigns of an existing record that was out there. It's got a die-cut diamond. The blowtorch artwork, I think, works really well. It's another record where I actually had bought it in December. I had found a regular copy. I remember it was my birthday, and I found this and I thought, I'll try this record. And I just thought it was so cool. And I never had listened to a Tangerine Dream record before. They have like 75 albums, and there's a lot. And I was like, oh, this is really fun. So I think this is a great example of them taking something. It's not expanded, it's not changed, but it's got a cool redesign. It's got a great color scheme. I just think they did a really good job. And it's like $30. I might even still be in print. So I just really recommend this one, of a record that they kind of pulled out from the past and reissued.
We've already given Baresta Bandit so much love, but I'm just going to continue because I think they sort of transform at least in my view and how I interact with them and the stuff I bought from them. But my favorite release from them was The Matrix, the complete recordings. Like first off, Matrix is one of the best films ever. It is. Everything about it is flawless. It's perfect. It doesn't have any flaws. The score is amazing. The soundtrack is amazing. One of my favorite soundtracks, like the actual soundtrack song compilations. Everything about it is flawless. Again, what we were talking with a little bit from The Crow, it's just like this release, it's on a whole other level that I just had not seen from them. It came in a really fun 3 gatefold that you open and you get like a really cool, for me it's like an iconic image of the film, of the phone booth. And not only that I got this on vinyl, but I got it on CD, the 5.1 DSD release date. And it also sounds incredible there, so I can enjoy it in all shapes and form. At least I began sort of this recording by talking about sort of prices, expensive, and this was $50. This was an amazing packaging, 3AP, a gatefold. You had your color variants, you had all the bells and whistles that you could expect in vinyl, and you still had a really good price tag for my mind, $50. So that was my favorite. They killed it this year. I'm so excited about seeing sort of this new, and again, in my eyes, this sort of new side of them and this strategy.
I think you're going to see that on a lot of people's lists. And I think all 3 of us own that version. They gave the composer, John Davis, a lot of room to write too, which I really love. I love it when they let people talk about it. I would encourage any labels, if I know they're watching us all the time, I encourage them to allow more space for the composers to talk about whatever they want to in reference to the soundtracks, because that stuff I could just eat up.
I don't know if labels realize how easily we are pleased with like very little. So throw in a piece of paper with a 3-question interview, and it's like, oh yes, like look at these amazing insights. But honestly, like any little thing, it doesn't have to be fancy, but something like that included in a release really adds a lot to that, because composers don't often get a space to talk about their process in the movies. You know, so some of the big ones will get a little section on the DVD bonus features, but normally we don't get that. So to have any opportunity to kind of hear from them, I think that's awesome.
Mark, what was your favorite record of 2021?
Is also a Matrix. So this wins top prize for me. I obviously agree with everything you said, but I'll add a few things. One, because it was an expanded release, there were so many cues to me that really added to the releases we've had over the years. There was a lot of music that I sort of forgot about, or I didn't kind of make the connection from the movie to the listening experience, so that it really kind of filled in a lot of gaps for me, and it just made me like the score overall much more. It's not one that I listened to a lot, so I was enticed by those bells and whistles to look at it. Whereas if it didn't have that, I might have been like, oh, you know, it's not that great, or just kind of forgotten about it. But I was enticed by that and rewarded with all of that extra music. So I was really pleased with that. And again, I liked all the creative choices that they made. One thing that I was surprised by based on the release that they did was that they did go with the glitter kind of effect. And I know that is very polarizing for a lot of people. Either they kind of dig it's you know, fun and whatnot, but that does impact the listening experience for some people, whether it's real or they just can't get it out of their head that you know, that the glitter does impact the sound quality. So they are releasing a black version of that. What's great about that is for the people that did not like the glitter option, it's like, there you go, you have everything you wanted. You get a nice, you know, audio file pressing pure black vinyl. You don't have to worry about the issues potentially with that glitter, you know, if that showed up on your pressing. So it's kind of everything you wanted right there. You know, maybe they're listening to us indeed and all of our silly comments.
David, take us out.
This is, you know, kind of inspired by you, Paulo, from last year. I believe this artist was on your list last year, and I don't know that I say his name out loud very often, so I'm gonna try it here, and forgive me, good sir, if I get it wrong here, but Emile Mosseri. And one of my favorite movies last year was Minari. This is a beautiful soundtrack. I found it to be incredibly touching, a really neat, you know, coming of age story. That it was actually, the whole story is very familiar, but it just, you know, it's just focusing on a group that doesn't always feature in these kinds of stories. I just really enjoyed it. But the music is so listenable away from the movie. I find it to be the record that touched me the most emotionally when I listened to it. I also find it really inspiring. It's something I put on almost or as early as I can in the morning. Like sometimes, and not even just the vinyl, right? Like I'll put it on digitally and it sounds like the sun rising, because it has like this great slow kind of start and build as it goes. And then it kind of gets going, and it reminds me of the like the full feel of the day almost. And by the time it gets about a third of the way through, it's like mid-morning, and your energy starts to move, and it's just given me a lot of joy this year.
It's spectacular. I love it too. Like, it's one of my favorite scores of the year. And the only reason it's not on my list, I just haven't bought it. It's been very difficult to get a hold of music on vinyl releases for me. Like, I don't see them at the stores as I usually do. I don't find them online, the usual spots I used to have them. But I'm looking for that release.
Keep looking, because I have one from Milan. And there's a few U.S. releases, like Sacred Bones had a exclusive, and Milan had a black vinyl. I don't think I'm real satisfied with the vinyl from those labels for this release, but I saw that there's a music on vinyl version. There's a couple colors, and I'll probably, you know, that's on my want list, and it's, you know, not on crazy prices yet. But I'd recommend that if anyone's watching this thinking about getting one, I'll say, Go ahead, spend the extra $15 and find the music on vinyl version, because this this record's worth it. It's really worth it.
Mark, what didn't make your list?
I really like the Dracula release by Mondo. There's been a couple of pressings out there, but it was just a nice one to finally get in the collection for me. Also, this is kind of a weird choice. I really love the Record Store Day release of Tomb Raider. That movie holds a special weird place in my heart. It just came out at the right time as I was a 13-year-old boy, and those songs just really click with me even today.
I loved your review of that, Mark. That was really fun. You've reviewed a couple of things on your channel that I wouldn't have really paid much attention to, and I'm one of the reasons I like getting to know you guys is that we all have slightly different tastes, and so I just thought that one was really fun because I had almost zero connection to it, but I watched it. After thinking, I was like, man, I gotta watch this movie. I don't think I've even seen it, and it was a super fun adventure movie. I was into it.
It's not going to win any Oscars, but it's fun.
They can't all win Oscars.
No.
I have a Record Store Day one for an honorable mention from the Maestro, from Ennio Morricone, and this is The Blue-Eyed Bandit. This movie's on YouTube, and it is terrible. I made it about 25 minutes, and it is not a good movie. It stars this guy, Franco Nero, who is in a Western I love called Django. It's not well made. It's not well dubbed. It's on YouTube for free. There's a variety of things wrong with it. This record is some super funky music from Ennio Morricone, and a real surprise. Also cheap, $25. Cool blue vinyl, like a really nice, fun surprise for Record Store Day there that I play a lot. The other one I'll throw out there is this B movie called Miami Connection.
I've
and
seen
I'm throwing
this
this in there too because this is a super fun kind of like kung fu movie. Doesn't make a ton of sense. They're also a rock band.
Yeah,
they're also
I was gonna say they're also a
Dragon's Den.
rock band when they're not kicking
Yeah.
ass, I suppose.
Exactly. But I'm going to throw this in here too because it's from the label Enjoy the Ride Records. And they release a lot of weird things from Ren and Stimpy, Mortal Kombat, this B movie. Like, they do weird stuff. And I'll say this record sounds amazing. Quiet, beautiful. You put that needle down and it's for, kind of a wild splatter thing. It's just a great record. And this has got a song on it called Friends, about being friends, staying friends forever. And and then fighting your enemies with kung fu. It's just a good time. This is from this is the Stone Killer. This is from a weird label called Beat Ball. This is the first thing I ever bought from them, and they're a label that I think is from somewhere in Asia, like Korea or Vietnam or something. The reason I'm going to throw this out there is that the liner notes were written by a guy named Charlie Brigden. Charlie did the liner notes for the Dracula that you just mentioned. He writes a lot for Mondo and Death Waltz, but this has a booklet in it, and he basically goes song by song, cue by cue, moment by moment, where he ties all of these things. Are they the right cue, alternate, otherwise? He's just really in depth. So this is a fun record. And last but not least, because I'm not sure when it exactly came out, Personal History of David Copperfield. This is by a composer called Christopher Willis. This movie feels a little bit like a Wes Anderson movie that has a little bit more of a looseness to it. Really funny. It's a loose adaptation of David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. And the music is just vibrant. It's a vibrant, string-filled joy. And if you feel like you haven't heard a soundtrack in the last couple of years that really embraces the orchestra, get this record. It's cut at 45 RPMs. And it's a 2-black vinyl. It's on a label that I can't find any information about, but I had to import it. It sounds perfect. And it's just the best orchestral score of the year for me. I've played the hell out of that record. It's so good.
Is there anything that got away this year?
Pre-orders. I mean, if pre-orders would have arrived, I think something that would have been on my list was the record label I Am 8-Bit, which actually video game music is something I've been really getting into this year. And to me, this is like the go-to label for video game music. One of my favorite releases from them is I actually pulled like a Cuphead 4 LP that, again, if you haven't...
What is that?
Oh my God, if you haven't listened to this soundtrack, guys, you have to listen to it. It is one of my favorite all-time game music, but I am a bit. They release this and they do an amazing job. Like their price tags are pretty big, but you do get what you pay for, at least the ones that I bought from them. This year, they released a soundtrack from a game that I became obsessed with called Sea of Thieves, which is basically like a pirate's Grand Theft Auto meets pirate life. So you get on your boat and you just go and steal stuff from people and get chests and gold and all that stuff. It's really cool. Pirate music is like one of my favorite genres of like niche in like film music. This soundtrack is not available on streaming. It's like only available by, it doesn't have a CD release, doesn't have a proper release. So I'm really glad that IMAB released it in this just really cool 3LP packaging. Like it comes with a 24 booklet on it. You just like a one of a kind collector's item, and it got delayed, but I'm really excited and I'm hoping that arrives and it sounds great. So that would have probably been on my list unless it was like atrocious for the price.
For me, the one that I wanted to get, I couldn't find, was Ocean's 11, the Record Store Day release. It just looked really nice, but I love that soundtrack. It's a little bit different. It does have a little bit of a jazzy vibe to it, and I love David Holmes. And
David Holmes,
that's just one that got away.
Ocean's 12 is also really good.
I never saw that one. Looking around, the one never popped up.
I actually, I know a record store that has it right now. I just saw it maybe last weekend when I was, so say the word and I'll get it.
Oh, well, I might have to take you up on that.
I was trying to think, did I let anything really get away? I was pretty tenacious this year. Working from home too, which, I'll say, less working from home. It allows me the opportunity to make sure I'm in the right spot for pre-orders without being, too jammed up. I ordered a copy of Prometheus for Music on Vinyl, and it actually got canceled everywhere I went. And now I'm kind of like, maybe that's okay. I kind of like, I'm gonna let that one go. The other one that got away from me is a little specialty, but Mondo had a contest for Full Metal Jacket, and I worked up that video for it, but I didn't end up winning. And I think that was the one I was like, oh, I hope I win this contest. And I did not. But it was cool. Wax Mage, which is a variant label that I've seen beautiful things from. I don't own anything from. I haven't seen them do a lot of soundtracks, to be honest. It seems like it's mostly punk and stuff. But it was really neat. Had like pieces of the poster embedded in it. So that's the one that got away from me. And there was only going to be 5 for the public. So it really got away from me.
All right, guys. Well, 2022 will be here right here on Zoom. Hopefully we buy a lot more, a lot less. I don't know how to feel about it. Here we go. While it's ready, let's go.